The rain hammered against the tall windows of Le Palais d'Or, one of Manhattan's most exclusive restaurants, where a single reservation could take months, and a bottle of wine cost more than most people earned in a week. Inside, crystal chandeliers cast golden light over marble floors, and the soft melody of a grand piano filled the air with an elegance that felt almost suffocating. Helena Vargas moved through this world like a shadow. At 52 years old, her hands were rough from decades of hard work. Her back perpetually bent from scrubbing floors that gleamed like mirrors. She wore faded gray coveralls and cheap rubber gloves, pushing a yellow cleaning cart that squeaked with every step. Her dark hair, streaked with silver, was pulled back into a simple bun. To the wealthy patrons dining on truffle risotto and aged steaks, she simply didn't exist. It was 10:47 p.m. on a cold Tuesday in November. Most of the dinner crowd had left, but a group of 6 remained at table 12, their laughter growing louder and more careless with each bottle of champagne. Helena had learned long ago to keep her head down around groups like this. Rich, young, drunk. A dangerous combination. She knelt near the entrance, scrubbing at a wine stain on the white marble. Her knees ached, but she worked methodically, the way she always did. Precision, silence, invisibility. These were the tools of her survival. "Jesus, look at this place," one of the men at table 12 said loudly, his voice slurred. "We're paying $300 a plate, and they've got homeless people cleaning the floors." Helena's hand paused for just a moment before continuing its circular motion. She'd heard worse, much worse. "Bradley, shut up," a woman's voice said, but she was laughing. "You're terrible." Bradley Hendricks, 28, hedge fund manager, inherited wealth, stood up unsteadily. His designer suit probably cost more than Helena made in 6 months. He walked toward her, his expensive shoes clicking on the marble she'd just cleaned. "Hey," he said, standing over her. "Hey, you speak English?" Helena didn't look up. "Yes, sir. Yes, sir," he mimicked in a mocking accent. "Look at that. So polite." He turned back to his friends. "See? This is what real Americans are competing with. People who will work for nothing." His friend Marcus Chen, a tech entrepreneur wearing a Rolex that caught the light, joined him. "Dude, leave her alone. You're being an asshole." "I'm being honest," Bradley shot back. He nudged Helena's cleaning bucket with his foot, sloshing soapy water onto the floor she'd just cleaned. "Oops, guess you'll have to do that again." The restaurant manager, Francois Dubois, noticed the commotion from across the room. His face tightened with concern, but he didn't move. Table 12 had spent over $8,000 that night. He couldn't afford to offend them. Helena slowly stood up, her knees cracking. She was 5'3", barely reaching Bradley's shoulder. She looked at the spilled water, then at her bucket, then began to kneel again. Wait, Bradley said, grabbing her arm. His fingers dug into the thin fabric of her coveralls. "I want to know something. How much do they pay you to clean up after us? Huh? $10 an hour? 15? "Please, sir," Helena said quietly, her accent thick but her English clear. "I need to clean." "You need to clean," he repeated, still holding her arm. "Isn't that sad? Rachel, isn't that sad?" He looked back at a blonde woman at the table who was recording on her phone, giggling. "Bradley, seriously, let her go," Marcus said, standing now. "This isn't funny anymore." But Bradley was enjoying himself. The alcohol had erased whatever filter he normally possessed. "I'll tell you what. I'll give you a $100 tip right now if you—" The front door opened. It wasn't a normal opening. It was the kind of opening that changed the atmosphere of a room instantly, the way a crack of thunder can make everyone stop talking. Cold November air rushed in, carrying with it the smell of rain and something else, something dangerous. 3 men in dark suits entered first. They didn't look around. They didn't smile. They simply positioned themselves near the door, the bar, and the kitchen entrance with military precision. They wore earpieces, and their jackets hung in a way that suggested weight, the kind of weight that comes from carrying weapons. Then he walked in. Dante Moretti was 55 years old, but he moved like a man who'd never lost a fight in his life. 6'2", broad-shouldered, with salt and pepper hair slicked back from a face that looked like it had been carved from granite. His black suit was impeccably tailored, his shirt crisp white, his tie dark red. But it wasn't his clothes that commanded attention. It was his eyes. Cold, gray, calculating. The eyes of a man who'd seen things that would break most people. He stood in the doorway, rainwater dripping from his coat, and slowly surveyed the restaurant. The piano player's hands froze mid-chord. Francois Dubois went pale. The remaining diners suddenly found their plates very interesting. Everyone in New York knew who Dante Moretti was, even people who pretended not to. He ran the Moretti family, one of the oldest and most powerful crime organizations in the city. His name appeared in FBI files and newspaper investigations. Politicians denied knowing him while accepting his donations. Police captains looked the other way. Businessmen paid him protection money and called it consulting fees. He didn't often appear in public. When he did, people noticed. Dante's eyes swept across the dining room and stopped. Completely stopped. His expression, which had been neutral, hardened into something cold and frightening. He was looking at table 12, specifically at Bradley Hendricks, who was still holding Helena's arm. Dante began walking, not quickly, not slowly, with the deliberate pace of someone who knew that no one would dare stop him. His footsteps echoed on the marble floor. Each step seemed to lower the temperature in the room. Bradley, drunk and oblivious, hadn't noticed yet. He was still talking, still holding Helena's arm, still playing to his audience. "Come on, just one little. Let her go." The voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It cut through the space like a blade. Quiet, sharp, absolute. Bradley turned, annoyed. "Excuse me? Who the hell?" He stopped. The words died in his throat, because he'd just looked into Dante Moretti's eyes. "I said," Dante repeated, his voice like gravel, "let her go." Bradley's hand released Helena's arm as if it had suddenly caught fire. He stumbled backward, his face draining of color. I didn't. We were just..." Dante held up one hand, silencing him. He didn't look at Bradley anymore. He was looking at Helena. For the first time since entering the restaurant, his expression softened. Just barely. Just enough. "Helena," he said. She looked up at him, and something passed between them. Recognition, memory, a shared history that no one else in that room could understand. "Mr. Moretti," she said quietly. The entire restaurant was frozen. Francois Dubois looked like he might faint. Marcus Chen had his phone out but didn't dare raise it. Rachel had stopped recording. Dante turned his attention back to Bradley and the temperature dropped again. "Do you know who this woman is?" Bradley shook his head frantically. "Do you know what she's done? What she's sacrificed?" Another shake. Dante took one step closer. "Then let me tell you something about respect. It has nothing to do with money. Nothing to do with fancy restaurants or expensive suits. Respect is earned through character, through dignity, through the choices you make when no one's watching." He gestured to Helena without taking his eyes off Bradley. "This woman has more character in her worn-out shoes than you'll have in your entire life." The silence was absolute. Dante turned to Francois. "How much does she make here?" Francois's voice shook. $15 an hour, Mr. Moretti." 15. Dante repeated the number like it was an obscenity. He pulled out his wallet and removed a thick stack of bills. He handed them to Helena. "This is for tonight. Go home. You're done here." "But Mr. Moretti, You're done cleaning floors," he said firmly. "Tomorrow you come see me. We'll talk about your future." He turned back to table 12. "As for you," he paused, letting the silence do the work. "You have 60 seconds to leave this restaurant. If I see any of you in this establishment again, we'll have a very different conversation." Bradley and his friends practically ran for the door. Dante watched them go, then looked around the restaurant at the remaining patrons. "Anyone else need a lesson in respect tonight?" No one spoke. He nodded once, then turned back to Helena. His voice softened again. "Go home. Rest. Tomorrow, everything changes." Then he walked out, his men following, leaving behind a restaurant full of people who'd just witnessed something they'd never forget. Helena stood there, holding the stack of bills, over $3,000, and for the first time in years, tears ran down her weathered face. The invisible woman had finally been seen. Helena Vargas sat on the worn couch in her small studio apartment in Queens, staring at the stack of bills Dante Moretti had given her the night before. $3,200. She'd counted it 4 times, unable to believe it was real. The money sat on her coffee table next to a cold cup of tea and a photograph in a cracked frame. Her younger self, smiling, holding a little girl with dark curls. It was 6:47 a.m. She hadn't slept. Her mind kept replaying the moment Dante walked into Le Palais d'Or, the look in his eyes when he saw that man grabbing her arm, the way the entire restaurant had fallen silent. She'd spent 15 years trying to forget Dante Moretti existed, and in one night, he'd walked back into her life as if no time had passed at all. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. Her hand trembled as she answered. "Mrs. Vargas?" A man's voice, professional but not cold. My name is Vincent. I work for Mr. Moretti. He asked me to pick you up at 9 o'clock this morning. He'd like to speak with you. Helena closed her eyes. I don't think that's necessary. Please tell Mr. Moretti thank you, but Mrs. Vargas, Vincent interrupted gently. Mr. Moretti doesn't make requests lightly. He'll be waiting for you at the Riverside Hotel, 9th floor, suite 904, 9 o'clock. The line went dead. Helena set the phone down and looked around her tiny apartment. 400 square feet of her entire life. A kitchenette with a hot plate that barely worked. A bathroom with a shower that dripped constantly. Peeling wallpaper she'd tried to cover with discount store paintings. This had been her home for 12 years. Ever since, she stopped that thought. Some memories were too painful to revisit in the early morning light. At 8:45 a.m., Helena stood in front of her closet, which contained exactly 7 outfits. She chose the only dress she owned, a simple navy blue one she'd bought at a thrift store for her daughter's high school graduation. That was 8 years ago. The dress still fit, though it was faded and the hem was starting to fray. She looked at herself in the mirror. Gray hairs she couldn't afford to color. Lines around her eyes from too many years of worry. Hands that no amount of lotion could soften. She looked exactly like what she was. A cleaning woman who'd spent her entire adult life on her knees. "Who are you fooling?" she whispered to her reflection. But she put on the dress anyway. The Riverside Hotel was in Tribeca, a neighborhood Helena rarely visited. It was the kind of place where doormen wore white gloves and the lobby smelled like expensive flowers. When she walked in at 8:58 a.m., several people glanced at her, not with curiosity but with that particular kind of dismissal reserved for people who clearly don't belong. The elevator was mirrored on all sides. Helena watched herself rise through the building, her reflection multiplying infinitely. All those versions of herself, all looking tired and out of place. The 9th floor hallway was silent, carpeted in deep burgundy. Suite 904 was at the end. Helena raised her hand to knock, but the door opened before her knuckles touched wood. Vincent was younger than she'd imagined from his voice, maybe 35, with sharp features and alert eyes. He wore a dark suit and an earpiece. "Mrs. Vargas, right on time. Please come in." The suite was larger than her entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Hudson River where morning light sparkled on the water. Expensive furniture, original artwork on the walls, a dining table that could seat 12. This was just a hotel room for Dante Moretti, a temporary space. "Mr. Moretti will be with you in a moment," Vincent said. "Can I get you anything? Coffee? Water?" "Water, please," Helena managed. She sat on the edge of a leather chair that probably cost more than 3 months of her rent. Her hands were folded in her lap, her back straight. Old habits. Her mother had taught her, when you're in a place you don't belong, sit like you have dignity, even if you feel like you have nothing. "Helena." She turned. Dante stood in the doorway of what must have been the bedroom. He'd changed since last night. Now he wore dark slacks and a white dress shirt, open at the collar, sleeves rolled to his elbows. Without the formal suit, he looked somehow more dangerous, more real. "Mr. Moretti," she said, starting to stand. "Sit, please." He moved into the room with that same deliberate grace she remembered. He sat across from her, leaning back, studying her face. "You look tired." "I didn't sleep much." "Neither did I." He paused. "I've been thinking about last night, about what those people said to you, what they did." Helena looked down at her hands. "It wasn't the first time. People like that, they don't see people like me." "I see you," Dante said quietly. "I've always seen you." The weight of those words hung in the air between them. Helena felt her throat tighten. That was a long time ago. 15 years, 3 months, and 12 days. Dante's voice was matter of fact. "Since the night you opened your door and found me bleeding on your steps." Helena closed her eyes. She'd tried so hard to forget that night. It had been January, brutally cold, snow falling in thick sheets. She'd been living in a different apartment then, in Washington Heights, a small 2-bedroom she'd shared with her daughter, Sophia. Helena had been working 2 jobs, cleaning offices during the day, waitressing at night. She'd just gotten home at 2 a.m. exhausted when she heard the sound. A thump, then another, like something heavy falling. She'd opened her door to find a man collapsed on the landing, leaving a trail of blood on the stairs. He'd been shot twice, once in the shoulder, once in the side. His face was gray with blood loss, his breathing shallow. She should have called 911. She should have closed her door and pretended she'd seen nothing. That's what people did in that neighborhood when they found trouble on their doorstep. But Helena had looked into his eyes, even half dead they'd been sharp, aware, and she'd seen something. Desperation, but also humanity. "Please," he'd whispered. "Can't. Hospital. They'll find me." She'd made a choice in that moment that changed everything. She'd dragged him inside, all 180 pounds of him, and closed the door. She'd spent the next 3 days keeping him alive with nothing but basic first aid supplies from the drugstore, antibiotics she'd saved from her own prescription, and determination. Sophia had been 14 then, and Helena had sworn her to secrecy. "We tell no one. No one. Do you understand?" For 3 days, Helena had called in sick to both jobs, sacrificing money she desperately needed. She'd cleaned his wounds, changed his bandages, forced water and soup down his throat. She'd stayed awake watching him, making sure he kept breathing. On the 4th day, he'd opened his eyes fully for the first time and said, "You saved my life." Why? Helena had thought about that question. Because you're somebody's son, maybe somebody's father. And if you died on my steps and I did nothing, I couldn't live with that. He'd stayed for 8 more days recovering strength. He never told her his full name, just Dante. She never asked what he'd done or why people were hunting him. She didn't want to know. When he left, he'd pressed an envelope into her hands. "This is for the jobs you missed, for the risk you took." Inside was $5,000 in cash, more money than she'd ever held at once. "I can't accept this," she'd said. "You can. You will." He'd looked at her with those gray eyes. "If you ever need anything, anything at all, you call this number." He'd handed her a card with nothing but 10 digits printed on it. "And Helena, what you did for me I won't forget. Ever." Then he'd walked out of her life. She'd used the money to pay off her credit card debt and finally fix her car. She'd thrown away the card with the phone number, wanting nothing to do with whatever world he came from. And she'd tried to forget. Now, sitting in this luxury hotel suite, Dante was watching her with those same eyes. "You threw away my number," he said. "Yes. Because you were afraid of me. Because I didn't want my daughter involved in whatever you are." Dante nodded slowly. "Smart. You were always smart, Helena. But you were also too proud. I had people check on you over the years, quietly, making sure you were okay." Helena's head snapped up. "You what?" "You worked yourself to exhaustion. 3 jobs at one point. Your daughter got into Columbia University, full scholarship. I made some calls to make sure the financial aid came through. When you got evicted from that apartment in Washington Heights, I had someone anonymously pay your back rent so you'd have time to find a new place." "No." Helena stood up, her voice shaking. "No, you had no right." "I had every right," Dante said firmly, standing to face her. "You saved my life. Do you understand what that means? In my world, a debt like that is sacred. It's permanent. I owed you everything and you wouldn't let me repay it. I didn't want to be repaid. I wanted to forget you existed." "Why?" Dante's voice rose for the first time. "Because I'm a criminal? Because of what people say about me? You think I don't know what I am?" He stepped closer, his voice dropping. "I know exactly what I am, Helena. I've done terrible things. I've hurt people. I've made choices that keep me up at night. But I have a code. Loyalty, honor, protection for those who show me kindness. And you showed me the greatest kindness anyone ever has. You saw me bleeding and broken, and you didn't turn away." Tears were streaming down Helena's face now. "My daughter, Sophia, she got sick. Leukemia. 3 years after you left, the hospital bills, even with insurance. I lost everything. I worked every hour I could. I sold everything we owned. And she died anyway. She died and I couldn't save her, and all the money in the world wouldn't have mattered because some things you just can't fix." The words came out in a rush. 15 years of pain and guilt and exhaustion pouring out. She'd never said it out loud before. Never admitted that despite all her work, all her sacrifice, she'd failed in the only thing that truly mattered. Dante stood very still. When he spoke, his voice was gentle. "I didn't know. I'm sorry, Helena. Truly sorry." She wiped her eyes roughly with the back of her hand. "Why did you bring me here? What do you want from me?" "I want to give you what you should have had all along. Respect, security, a life where you're not on your knees scrubbing other people's floors." He walked to the window, looking out at the river. "I own several businesses, legitimate ones, restaurants, hotels, a catering company. They all need management. You're smart, organized, and you understand hard work better than anyone I know. I'm offering you a job, a real one." Helena laughed bitterly. "I'm a cleaning woman with a high school education. What do I know about managing anything? You kept me alive with drugstore supplies and determination. You raised a daughter who got into an Ivy League school while working 3 jobs. You've survived 15 years of hell without breaking. Dante turned to face her. That's the kind of person I want running my operations. Someone real. Someone who understands what actually matters. Helena stood there, torn between disbelief and something dangerous. Hope. There's something else, Dante said. Last night, after what happened at the restaurant, people are going to talk. They're going to ask questions about who you are and why I protected you. Some of those people might try to use you to get to me. Fear crept into Helena's chest. What are you saying? I'm saying you're in my world now, whether you want to be or not. And in my world, I protect what's mine. He met her eyes. So I'm asking you to let me. Work for me. Let me keep you safe. Let me finally repay the debt I owe you. And if I say no? Dante was quiet for a long moment. Then I'll have my people watch over you from a distance the way they have been. But those men last night weren't the last who will look at you and see someone they can push around. The difference is, now they know you're connected to me. That makes you either protected or a target. He paused. I'd prefer you to be protected. Helena's mind was spinning. Everything she'd built, her carefully anonymous life, her safety through invisibility, had shattered last night. And standing here now, looking at this dangerous man who'd somehow never forgotten her small act of kindness, she realized she was standing at a crossroads. Behind her was everything familiar. Poverty, exhaustion, invisibility. Ahead was unknown. Dangerous maybe, but also possibility. What would I have to do? She asked quietly. Dante smiled. A real smile, the first she'd seen. First, you're going to learn how my businesses operate. Then you're going to help me run them, and Helena, yes, you're never going to clean another floor as long as you live. Helena Vargas looked out at the Hudson River, glittering in the morning sun, and made her choice. When do I start? 3 weeks had passed since Helena Vargas walked into Dante Moretti's hotel suite and accepted his offer. 3 weeks that felt like 3 years, or maybe 3 lifetimes. It was a frigid December morning, and Helena stood in front of a full-length mirror in a spacious apartment she still couldn't believe was hers. 15th floor, Upper West Side, 2 bedrooms with actual closets, a kitchen with appliances that all worked, and windows that overlooked Central Park. The rent was paid for a year in advance. Consider it a signing bonus, Dante had said, as if it were nothing. Helena touched the fabric of her new clothes, a charcoal gray pantsuit that actually fit her properly, tailored to her measurements by someone Dante's assistant had sent her to. Professional but not flashy, respectful but not submissive. She looked like someone who belonged in an office, not on her knees with a mop. She barely recognized herself. Her phone buzzed. A new phone provided by Dante's people with everyone's numbers already programmed in. A text from Vincent. Car downstairs in 10 minutes. Mr. Moretti wants you at Castellanos by 8 a.m. Bring the reports. Helena grabbed the leather folder, also new, containing the financial report she'd been studying obsessively for the past week. Castellanos was one of Dante's restaurants, an upscale Italian place in Midtown that served politicians and celebrities. She'd spent the last 2 weeks learning everything about how it operated: staff schedules, supplier contracts, profit margins, customer complaints. It was overwhelming, but also exhilarating. The black sedan was waiting outside, Vincent behind the wheel. He nodded as she got in. Over the past 3 weeks, Vincent had become something like a guardian. Professional, distant, but oddly protective. He never asked personal questions. Never made her feel stupid when she didn't understand something about Dante's world. Nervous? He asked as they pulled into traffic. Terrified, Helena admitted. Good. Means you're taking it seriously. Vincent glanced at her in the rearview mirror. For what it's worth, the staff at Castellanos has been told you're coming. They know you have Mr. Moretti's full authority. Helena's stomach twisted. Authority. Her. The woman who 3 weeks ago was scrubbing toilets. Castellanos occupied a corner building with big windows and an elegant green awning. Even at 7:55 a.m., the place hummed with activity. Delivery trucks outside, staff inside preparing for lunch service. Vincent walked her to a side entrance that led directly to the administrative offices upstairs. Dante was already there, sitting at a large desk covered with paperwork, a phone pressed to his ear. He saw her and held up one finger. 1 minute, while finishing his conversation in rapid Italian. When he hung up, he stood and buttoned his suit jacket. Helena, good. You're early. I like that. He gestured to a chair across from his desk. Before we go downstairs, I need to explain something. The manager here, his name is Tony Brescia. He's been with me for 8 years. Loyal, competent, but he's gotten comfortable. Too comfortable. The profit margins are dropping, staff turnover is increasing, and I'm getting complaints about the quality slipping. Helena opened her folder and pulled out the spreadsheet she'd created. I noticed that. Food costs are up 17% in the last 6 months, but menu prices haven't changed. You're losing money on almost every entree. Dante's eyebrows raised slightly. He took the spreadsheet, studied it. You figured this out from the reports I gave you? It wasn't that hard. The numbers don't lie. Helena pointed to another column. Also, you're paying for premium ingredients, but the supplier is delivering standard quality. I called them, pretended to be a customer, and they quoted me prices 30% lower than what you're being charged. Dante set down the paper and looked at her with something like respect. Tony's been skimming. Or the supplier is cheating you and Tony doesn't know. Either way, you're being stolen from. And what would you do about it? Helena had thought about this. First, I'd verify everything. Get quotes from other suppliers, check actual deliveries against invoices. Then I'd sit down with Tony, show him the numbers and watch his reaction. If he's guilty, he'll panic. If he's incompetent, he'll be defensive. If he's innocent, he'll be angry. Dante smiled, a predator's smile. You've been paying attention. You gave me a job. I'm going to do it right. Then let's go meet Tony. The main kitchen of Castellanos was controlled chaos. Chefs shouted orders, pans clanged, the air smelled of garlic and fresh bread. Tony Brescia was near the walk-in refrigerator, clipboard in hand, checking inventory. He was a short, stocky man in his 40s with thinning hair and a permanent scowl. Tony, Dante called out. Tony turned, saw Dante, and his expression immediately shifted to something obsequious. Mr. Moretti, I didn't know you were coming in today. Is everything? Everything's fine. I want you to meet someone. Dante gestured to Helena. This is Helena Vargas. She's going to be overseeing operations at several of my establishments, starting here. Tony's smile faltered, just for a second. Then it was back, plastic, and tight. Of course. Welcome, Mrs. Vargas. He extended his hand. Helena shook it. His palm was sweaty. Mr. Brescia, I've been reviewing Castellanos' financials. Very interesting reading. Oh? Tony laughed nervously. Well, you know how it is in the restaurant business. Tight margins, lots of variables. Variables. Helena opened her folder and handed him a printout. Like why you're paying $8 a pound for Chilean sea bass when the market rate is $5.50? The color drained from Tony's face. Dante leaned against the counter, arms crossed, watching. I'd have to check with our supplier, Tony stammered. Sometimes there are delivery fees, premium charges. I called Merino Seafood. Helena continued, her voice calm but firm. They said they've been delivering standard quality, not premium, for the past 4 months. They also said someone from Castellanos called and specifically requested the invoices show higher prices. Tony's mouth opened and closed. That's not. I don't know who would. Your signature is on every invoice, Mr. Brescia. The kitchen had gone quiet. The chefs pretended to work, but everyone was listening. Tony's face went from pale to red. You come in here, some nobody cleaning lady, and accuse me of. Dante moved. It wasn't dramatic. He simply straightened up and took one step forward. But the effect was like a thunderclap. Tony stopped mid-sentence, suddenly remembering exactly who he was talking to. Careful, Dante said softly. Choose your next words very carefully. Tony looked at Helena, then at Dante, then at the floor. I can explain. I'm sure you can. My office now. As they walked out of the kitchen, Helena caught sight of the sous chef, a young woman with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun, watching her with something like admiration. In the office upstairs, Tony crumbled. The story came out in a rush. He'd started skimming 2 years ago when his gambling debts got out of control. Just a little at first, then more. He'd been working with the supplier to inflate invoices and split the difference. Over 2 years, he'd stolen nearly $80,000. Dante listened without expression. When Tony finished, there was a long silence. Please, Tony said, his voice breaking. I have a family. Kids. I'll pay it back, every cent, I swear. You will pay it back, Dante said. Every cent plus interest. You have 6 months. Miss a single payment and we'll have a different conversation. He leaned forward. But you're done here. Clean out your desk. If I ever hear you're working in this city again, anywhere in the restaurant industry, that different conversation happens immediately. Do we understand each other? Tony nodded frantically. Yes, Mr. Moretti. Thank you. Get out. Tony practically ran from the office. When he was gone, Dante turned to Helena. You handled that well. I was shaking the entire time. I know, but you didn't show it. That's what matters. Dante walked to the window overlooking the street. Tony called you a cleaning lady, like it was an insult. It's what I was. It's what you did, not what you were. Dante turned to face her. You want to know why I'm really putting you in charge of my operations? It's not charity. It's not even just repaying a debt. It's because you see things other people miss. You notice details. You understand that every dollar matters, because you've lived with nothing. People who've always had money, they get careless. But you'll fight for every cent because you know what it means to not have any. Helena felt something shift in her chest. Pride, maybe, or purpose. What happens now with Castellanos? Now you find me a new manager, interview candidates, check references, make the decision. It's your call. Mine? Helena's eyes widened. Dante, I've been doing this for 3 weeks. And in 3 weeks you caught a problem my accountants missed for 2 years. He smiled. Trust yourself, Helena. I do. That afternoon, Helena sat in the same office conducting interviews. Vincent had put out word through industry connections and 5 candidates showed up. One had worked at a Michelin-starred restaurant in Brooklyn. Another had managed hotel food services. The third was a young woman named Carla Reyes, the sous chef from downstairs. I've been here 3 years, Carla said, sitting across from Helena with confidence despite being 15 years younger. I know every dish, every supplier, every staff member. I know what works and what doesn't. And I knew Tony was stealing. You knew? Helena leaned forward. Why didn't you say anything? Who was I going to tell? Tony? He'd fire me. Mr. Moretti? Carla laughed. You don't just walk up to Dante Moretti with accusations unless you have proof. I'm a line cook. Nobody listens to line cooks. Helena understood that feeling intimately. If I give you this job, what would you change first? The menu. Half these dishes are outdated. We're serving food from 10 years ago, while every other Italian place in Manhattan is innovating. We need seasonal specials, better wine pairings, and we need to actually use the premium ingredients we're supposedly buying. Carla pulled out her phone and showed Helena photos. I've been developing recipes on my own time, modern Italian. Traditional techniques, but contemporary presentation. The food in the photos looked incredible. Why haven't you shown these to anyone? Helena asked. Like I said, nobody listens to line cooks. Carla met her eyes. But maybe they'll listen to you. Helena saw herself in this young woman. The hunger, the intelligence, the frustration of being invisible despite having so much to offer. When can you start? Helena asked. Carla blinked. Wait, you're offering me the job? You know the restaurant. You have ideas. You noticed problems but didn't have the power to fix them. Now you will. Helena extended her hand. Welcome to management, Carla. The young woman's eyes filled with tears as she shook Helena's hand. Thank you. You won't regret this. After Carla left, Helena sat alone in the office, looking at the financial reports spread across the desk. 3 weeks ago, she'd been invisible. Today, she'd just fired someone and hired someone else. She'd made decisions that would affect dozens of lives. It was terrifying, but it was also the most alive she'd felt since Sophia died. Her phone buzzed. A text from Dante. How'd the interviews go? She typed back, I hired the sous chef. She's smart, and she sees what others miss. 3 dots appeared then, just like someone else I know. See you tomorrow. There's someone I want you to meet. Helena stared at that message, someone I want you to meet. In Dante's world, that could mean anything. Business partner, associate, rival, or threat. She looked out the window at the Manhattan skyline, the lights beginning to glow as evening fell. 3 weeks ago, her world was small and safe and suffocating. Now it was vast and dangerous and full of possibility. Helena Vargas was no longer invisible, and that meant she was no longer safe. But somehow she couldn't bring herself to care. The black SUV picked Helena up at 7 a.m. on a Saturday, which immediately told her this wasn't a normal business meeting. Vincent was driving again, but this time there was another man in the passenger seat. Marco, one of Dante's personal security team. Older, scarred, silent. The kind of man whose presence alone was a warning. Where are we going? Helena asked as they crossed the Brooklyn Bridge. Red Hook, Vincent said. One of Mr. Moretti's warehouses. Helena's stomach tightened. In the month since she'd started working for Dante, she'd stayed carefully within the legitimate side of his operations. Restaurants, the catering company, a small hotel in Queens. She knew there was another side, the side that made Dante Moretti a name people whispered with fear, but she'd convinced herself she could stay separate from that world. Apparently that separation was ending. Red Hook was industrial, shipping containers, auto repair shops, warehouses with no signs. The SUV pulled up to a nondescript building with steel doors and security cameras visible on every corner. Marco got out first, surveyed the street, then nodded to Vincent. Nodded. "Stay close to me," Vincent said to Helena as they walked toward the entrance. Inside, the warehouse was cavernous. High ceilings, concrete floors, the smell of motor oil and something metallic. Wooden crates were stacked against one wall. A black Mercedes was parked near the back, surrounded by 4 men in suits. And in the center of the space, sitting calmly in a folding chair like he was waiting for a bus, was Dante Moretti. But he wasn't alone. Kneeling on the floor in front of him, hands zip-tied behind his back, was a man Helena recognized. Bradley Hendricks, the hedge fund manager from Le Palais d'Or, the one who'd grabbed her arm and mocked her. He looked very different now. His expensive suit was torn and dirty. His face was bruised, one eye swollen shut. Blood dripped from his nose onto the concrete. When he saw Helena, something flickered in his remaining good eye, fear mixed with recognition. "Helena," Dante said, standing. "Thank you for coming. I know this isn't what you expected for a Saturday morning." "Dante, what is this?" Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "This is a teaching moment." Dante walked over to Bradley, looked down at him with no expression. "Mr. Hendricks here made some poor choices after our encounter at the restaurant. Didn't you, Bradley?" Bradley didn't answer. His jaw was clenched, tears and snot mixing with the blood on his face. Dante continued, his voice conversational. "After I embarrassed him publicly, after I made it clear that you were under my protection, Bradley decided to salvage his wounded pride. He started telling people that the great Dante Moretti had gone soft, that I was being manipulated by some cleaning lady, that I'd lost my edge." He paused. "Then he made a mistake. He hired someone to follow you." Helena's blood went cold. "What? For the past week, a private investigator has been tracking your movements, taking photos of where you live, where you work, who you talk to. Bradley here wanted leverage. He thought if he could find something compromising about you, he could use it to hurt me." Dante walked closer to Helena, his gray eyes intense. "Do you understand what that means? He put you in danger, not just from him, but from anyone who might have noticed someone watching you. In my world, when people start asking questions about someone I've protected, it sends a message that maybe that protection isn't real. Maybe you're vulnerable." Helena looked at Bradley, who was shaking now, and felt something unexpected. Not pity, but a cold understanding. This was Dante's world. Actions had consequences. Threats were answered with force. "What are you going to do to him?" she asked quietly. "That depends." Dante turned back to Bradley. "Tell Mrs. Vargas what you found out." Bradley's voice came out cracked, desperate. "Nothing. I found nothing. You're exactly who you appear to be. A woman working for Mr. Moretti. No secrets, no agenda, nothing that could be used. I swear I was angry and stupid, and you were going to hurt her to hurt me," Dante interrupted. "And that, Bradley, is something I can't allow to stand unanswered. Please." Bradley was crying openly now. "I'm sorry, I'll leave the city. I'll never mention your name again. Just please." Dante held up his hand. Bradley fell silent. "Helena," Dante said, "I brought you here because you need to understand something. The moment you accepted my offer, the moment you walked into my world, you became a target for anyone who wants to hurt me. And there are a lot of people who want to hurt me." He gestured to Bradley. "This idiot is just the first. There will be others, smarter ones, more dangerous ones." Helena felt the weight of those words. She'd known, intellectually, that working for Dante carried risks. But standing here, looking at a man who'd been beaten for threatening her, the reality crashed over her like ice water. "I need to know," Dante continued, "that you understand what you've gotten into, and I need to know that you're prepared for what that means. Because if you're not, if this is too much, I'll have Vincent take you home right now. I'll set you up somewhere safe, somewhere far from here, with enough money to live comfortably. But you walk away from all of this. From the restaurants, the apartment, the job. From me." Helena's mind raced. This was her exit, her chance to go back to being invisible, to being safe. She could take the money and disappear, maybe move to another state, start over somewhere quiet. But then she thought about the past month, about Carla, the sous chef she'd promoted who'd called her crying with gratitude, About the line cooks at Castellanos who now made eye contact with her and asked her opinion. About walking into rooms and being listened to instead of looked through. She thought about Sophia, her daughter, who'd dreamed of being a lawyer because she wanted to stand up for people who couldn't stand up for themselves. Sophia, who'd never gotten the chance to become the person she was meant to be. Helena had spent 15 years making herself small, invisible, safe, and it hadn't protected her from anything that mattered. She looked at Dante. What happens to him? She nodded toward Bradley. That's up to you. Helena blinked. What? He threatened you, put you at risk. In my world, you have the right to decide his punishment. Dante's voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. I can make him disappear, permanently. Or I can make him wish he had disappeared, or... He paused. We can send a different kind of message. Helena walked closer to Bradley. He looked up at her, his one good eye pleading. She remembered that night at the restaurant, the way he'd laughed while humiliating her, the way his fingers had dug into her arm, the casual cruelty of someone who'd never faced consequences. But she also saw something else. She saw a pathetic man who'd let his ego override his survival instinct. A stupid, wounded boy in an expensive suit. I don't want him dead, she said finally. Dante nodded. Then what? Helena thought carefully. Dante was testing her, she realized. Seeing if she could think strategically, if she understood how power actually worked. He hired someone to investigate me, she said slowly. Which means he has money problems or he wouldn't have cared so much about being embarrassed. Men like him don't spend money on revenge unless their pride is the only thing they have left. Dante's lips curved slightly. His hedge fund is failing. He's about to lose everything. Then we help him lose it faster. Helena looked directly at Bradley. You have clients, right? Rich people who trust you with their money? Bradley nodded frantically. Here's what's going to happen, Helena said, her voice growing stronger. You're going to call every single one of them. You're going to tell them your fund is in trouble and advise them to withdraw their investments immediately. You're going to professionally destroy yourself. Bradley's face went white. That's my entire career. My reputation. I'll never work in finance again. Exactly. Helena crossed her arms. You wanted to destroy me to save your pride. Now you're going to destroy your career to save your life. Seems fair. Dante was watching her with something like approval. And if he refuses, then Marco over there probably has some ideas about what happens next. Helena looked at Dante's security man, who smiled without warmth. Okay, Bradley said immediately. Okay, I'll do it. I'll make the calls today, right now, whatever you want. Not good enough, Dante said. You'll do it, yes. But you'll also sign a document admitting what you did. Hiring the investigator, planning to use information against Mrs. Vargas, all of it. Notarized, that document stays with me. If you ever, and I mean ever, mention her name, my name, or anything about what happened here, that document goes to the SEC, the FBI, and every news outlet in New York. You'll spend the next 10 years in federal prison for fraud, conspiracy, and whatever else they decide to charge you with. Dante gestured to one of his men, who brought over a laptop and papers already prepared. Sign. Bradley signed with shaking hands. One more thing, Helena added, surprising herself. That private investigator you hired, his name and contact information. Now. Bradley stammered out a name. Curtis Wade, some former cop turned PI. Vincent wrote it down. When it was done, Dante's men cut Bradley's zip ties. You have 24 hours to make those calls to your clients, Dante said. Vincent will be monitoring. If you try to run, if you try to warn anyone, if you do anything except exactly what you've been told, we'll have that different conversation. And Bradley, you won't enjoy it. They let Bradley limp out of the warehouse. Helena watched him go, feeling something complex. Not quite satisfaction, but not quite guilt either. She'd just ruined a man's life, but he'd tried to ruin hers first. When the warehouse was empty except for Dante, Vincent, Marco, and herself, Dante turned to her. You showed mercy, he said. I showed strategy, Helena corrected. A dead man can't warn other people what happens when they threaten me. But a ruined man, one who destroyed himself publicly, that's a message that spreads. Dante smiled, a real smile, not the cold predator's grin. You're learning. I'm adapting. Helena took a breath. But Dante, I need to know something. That private investigator, Curtis Wade. He has photos of me, information about my life. He's a loose end. He is. Dante nodded to Vincent. Already being handled. By tomorrow, Mr. Wade will have decided that investigating people connected to me is bad for his health. His files will be destroyed. His memory will become very selective and he'll take an extended vacation somewhere warm. You mean you're going to scare him? I mean I'm going to educate him about the value of discretion. Dante stepped closer to Helena. You made a good decision today, not letting anger or fear control you. Thinking about consequences, that's rare. Helena met his eyes. I'm not going to pretend I'm comfortable with all of this. With violence, with threats, with making people afraid. That's not who I am. No, Dante agreed. But you're not who you were a month ago either. You're becoming something new. Someone who can exist in both worlds. The legitimate and the necessary. That's valuable, Helena. That's power. Is that what you want? For me to become like you? Dante was quiet for a moment. I want you to become whoever you're meant to be, and I want to make sure you survive long enough to figure that out. As they walked back to the SUV, Helena's phone buzzed. A text from Carla at Castellanos. New menu is ready. Customers are loving it. Reservations up 40% this week. Thank you for believing in me. Helena showed the text to Dante. This is what I want to focus on, building things, helping people, not... She gestured back at the warehouse. Then do that, Dante said. Run my restaurants. Make them successful. Help people like Carla succeed. But understand that sometimes to protect what you're building, you have to deal with people like Bradley. You have to make hard choices. You have to show strength. And if I can't, if I'm not strong enough? Dante stopped, turned to face her. The morning sun was rising over Brooklyn, casting long shadows. Helena, you survived losing your daughter and kept going. You worked yourself to exhaustion for years and never gave up. You're one of the strongest people I've ever met. You just didn't know it because no one ever gave you the chance to show it. Helena felt tears prick her eyes but blinked them back. What if I make the wrong choice? What if I hurt someone who didn't deserve it? Then you live with it. Like I do. Like we all do. Dante's voice was gentle but firm. But making no choice, letting fear paralyze you, letting people like Bradley think they can threaten you without consequences, that's not survival. That's just waiting to be a victim again. They drove back to Manhattan in silence. Helena watched the city wake up. Delivery trucks making morning rounds, joggers in the park, coffee shops opening their doors, normal people living normal lives, unaware of the world that existed in the shadows. She was between those worlds now, no longer invisible but not fully part of Dante's darkness either. Somewhere in the middle, trying to find her balance. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a message from an unknown number. You made the right call today. Bradley's already making his calls. Word is spreading. People are going to think twice before messing with you. V. Vincent, of course, probably monitoring everything. Helena typed back, Is this my life now? Always looking over my shoulder? The reply came quickly. No, this is your life now. People looking over their shoulders at you. Helena stared at that message for a long time. Maybe Vincent was right. Maybe she wasn't becoming Dante. Maybe she was becoming something different. Someone who could build and protect, who could be kind but not weak, who could show mercy but also strength. Someone who'd learned that being visible meant being vulnerable, but also powerful. Someone who would never be on her knees again. February arrived with a brutal cold snap that froze the Hudson River and turned Manhattan streets into wind tunnels. Helena stood in her apartment she still had to remind herself, watching snow fall over Central Park. 2 months ago, she'd been scrubbing floors. Now she was reviewing quarterly reports for 5 restaurants, a hotel, and a catering company that had just landed a contract with the mayor's office. Her phone rang. Not a text this time. An actual call. From Dante. Helena, I need you at Moretti's tonight, 7 o'clock. Wear something formal. Moretti's was Dante's crown jewel, a 5-star Italian restaurant in the financial district where senators and CEOs made deals over 30-year-old wine. Helena had toured it once but had never been there during service. It was Dante's personal domain, the place where he conducted his most important business. What's the occasion? She asked. Someone wants to meet you. Someone important. His voice was careful, controlled. This is a test, Helena. How you handle tonight will determine a lot about your future here. The line went dead before she could ask more questions. At 6:30, Helena stood in front of her closet, staring at clothes she still wasn't used to owning. Vincent had taken her to a boutique in Soho 3 weeks ago, insisting that if she was going to represent Dante's interests, she needed to look the part. The woman who'd helped her, an elegant French woman named Simone, had studied Helena like a sculptor examining marble, then selected pieces that were expensive but not flashy, professional, powerful. Helena chose a black dress, Simple but perfectly cut with a silk shawl. Pearl earrings. Real ones. A gift from Dante after she'd successfully negotiated a new contract with their seafood supplier, saving them $40,000 a year. She looked in the mirror and saw someone she was still learning to recognize. The car arrived at 6:45. Vincent drove, but this time there were 2 additional security vehicles. One ahead, one behind. Whatever tonight was about, it was serious. "Who am I meeting?" Helena asked. Vincent's eyes met hers in the rearview mirror. Angelo Toscani. Helena's breath caught. Even she knew that name. Angelo Toscani ran the largest crime family in New Jersey. He was old-school mafia, the kind who still believed in codes and territories and blood oaths. More importantly, he was Dante's primary rival for control of the eastern seaboard. "Why does he want to meet me?" "Because you're the mystery everyone's talking about. A cleaning woman who suddenly has Dante Moretti's complete trust, who ruined Bradley Hendricks with a phone call, who's running his legitimate operations and making them more profitable than they've been in years." Vincent paused. "You've become interesting, Mrs. Vargas. And in this world, interesting means dangerous." Moretti's occupied the ground floor of a historic building with vaulted ceilings and original brass fixtures from 1923. The main dining room was full, 50 tables, everyone occupied by people who mattered. Politicians, judges, businessmen, and scattered among them, men in expensive suits who carried themselves with the particular alertness of soldiers. Dante was at the back, at a large private table separated from the main room by frosted glass panels. But he wasn't alone. Across from him sat a man in his 70s with silver hair, a deeply lined face and eyes that missed nothing. Angelo Toscani. And beside Angelo sat a woman around Helena's age, wearing diamonds that could fund a small hospital. Dante stood when he saw Helena. "Angelo, may I introduce Helena Vargas?" "Helena, this is Angelo Toscani and his daughter Sophia." Helena shook hands with both. Angelo's grip was firm, assessing. Sophia's was cold, her smile not reaching her eyes. "Mrs. Vargas," Angelo said, his voice carrying the weight of decades, "I've heard remarkable things about you. Please sit, please." The next 30 minutes were a masterclass in careful conversation. They talked about the restaurant business, about the challenges of maintaining quality, about the changing demographics of New York. Surface talk, but underneath, Helena could feel the real conversation happening, the one in glances and pauses and carefully chosen words. Finally, Angelo set down his wineglass. "Dante tells me you were a cleaning woman until recently." "That's correct," Helena said evenly. "And now you run his operations. Quite a promotion." Angelo smiled, but it wasn't warm. Some people might wonder if perhaps Mr. Moretti has lost his objectivity, allowed sentiment to cloud his business judgment. There it was, the real reason for this meeting. Angelo was questioning whether Dante had gone soft, whether his protection of Helena was a weakness that could be exploited. Helena met Angelo's eyes directly. "Mr. Toscani, with respect, I don't think Dante Moretti is capable of letting sentiment cloud anything. He gave me a chance because he recognized something useful, and I've proven him right. Castellanos' profits are up 32% since I took over management. The catering company just landed 3 major contracts. His hotel in Queens has the highest occupancy rate in the borough. Numbers can be manipulated," Sophia said, speaking for the first time. Her voice was sharp, educated. "Anyone can show profit on paper." "You're right," Helena agreed, "which is why I brought these." She pulled a folder from her bag. She'd learned to always carry documentation and slid it across the table. Independent audits, customer satisfaction surveys, staff retention rates, everything verified by third parties. Angelo opened the folder, scanned the documents. His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Respect, maybe. Or recalculation. "Impressive," he said finally. "But tell me, Mrs. Vargas, what happens when you realize the restaurants are just the surface? When you see what really funds Mr. Moretti's empire?" Helena had known this question was coming. She'd rehearsed her answer, but now, sitting across from one of the most dangerous men on the East Coast, the rehearsed words felt hollow, so she told the truth instead. "I already know, Mr. Toscani. I'm not naive. I understand that the legitimate businesses are only part of the picture, but here's what I also understand. Those legitimate businesses employ 200 people. Cooks, servers, housekeepers, managers, real people with families, with bills, with dreams, and those businesses are successful because someone, me, is making sure they're run properly. So yes, I know where some of the money comes from. And I've made peace with focusing on where some of it goes. The table was silent. Dante's expression was unreadable. Sophia looked annoyed. But Angelo was smiling. A real smile this time. Honest, he said. I appreciate that. Too many people in this life pretend to be something they're not. He leaned back. But honesty can be dangerous, Mrs. Vargas. It makes you unpredictable. And unpredictable people make everyone nervous. Would you prefer I lie? I'd prefer to know where your loyalties lie. Because Dante has put you in a position of significant influence. You control access to money, to information, to people. That makes you powerful. And power without clear loyalty is a threat. Helena felt the weight of everyone's attention. This was the real test. Not her business acumen or her numbers. This was about whether she could be trusted in their world. She looked at Dante, then back to Angelo. My loyalty is to the people who depend on the businesses I run. To Carla Reyes, who's now the head chef at Castellanos because I saw her potential. To Marco Chen, who manages the hotel and sends half his paycheck to his mother in Queens. To the dishwashers and housekeepers and line cooks who show up every day and work hard for a decent wage. She paused. And my loyalty is to Dante Moretti, because he gave me the chance to help those people when everyone else looked through me like I was invisible. Admirable, Sophia said, her tone suggesting it was anything but. But what happens when Mr. Moretti asks you to do something that conflicts with your morality? When the business requires? Difficult decisions. Helena thought about Bradley Hendricks, about the warehouse, about the choices she'd already made. I've already made difficult decisions, Ms. Toscani. I'll probably make more, but I'll make them with my eyes open, understanding the consequences, and I'll live with them. That's all anyone in this life can do. Angelo studied her for a long moment, then turned to Dante. I see why you trust her. She's got steel in her spine. He stood, signaling the meal was over. Mrs. Vargas, it was illuminating to meet you. I suspect we'll be seeing more of each other. As Angelo and Sophia left, Helena released a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Dante remained seated, watching her. You did well, he said quietly. Did I pass the test? There's always another test. Dante signaled to a waiter, who brought fresh wine. But yes, Angelo was trying to gauge whether you're a liability or an asset. You convinced him you're the latter. And Sophia? She hated me on sight. Dante smiled slightly. Sophia Toscani has an MBA from Harvard and runs half her father's operations. She's brilliant, ruthless, and deeply resentful that Angelo still treats her like a child because she's a woman, seeing another woman in a position of power in my organization. He shrugged. It's complicated. She sees me as competition. She sees you as a threat to the established order, which, to be fair, you are. Before Helena could respond, Vincent appeared at the table, his expression tense. Mr. Moretti, we have a situation. Dante's casual demeanor vanished instantly. What kind of situation? Curtis Wade, the private investigator. Helena's stomach dropped. Curtis Wade, the PI Bradley Hendricks had hired to follow her. The one Vincent said they'd handled. What about him? Dante asked, his voice dangerous. He's dead. Found in his apartment 2 hours ago. Single gunshot to the head. Made to look like suicide, but it wasn't. Professional job. The room seemed to tilt. Helena gripped the edge of the table. What? But you said he was handled. That he'd been scared off. He was, Vincent said grimly. Which means someone else killed him. Someone who wanted to make sure whatever information he had about Mrs. Vargas died with him. Dante stood abruptly. Get Helena home, full security detail. No one in or out without my authorization. He looked at Helena. Someone's making a move. Using you as the opening gambit. We need to find out who before they make their next play. Dante, I don't understand. Who would? That's what I'm going to find out. His voice was cold now, the man from the warehouse returning. Vincent, get her out of here now. The drive back to Helena's apartment was tense. Vincent made 3 phone calls in Italian, his voice clipped and urgent. 2 security cars bracketed them the entire way. When they arrived, 4 men in suits were already positioned in the lobby. In her apartment, Helena stood by the window looking out at the city lights, trying to process what had just happened. Curtis Wade was dead, murdered, because of her, because someone wanted to erase the trail that led to her. But why? Who benefited from her looking dangerous? From making it seem like she was willing to kill to protect secrets? Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. The investigator was just the beginning. Next time, it won't be someone you barely know. It'll be someone you care about. Walk away while you still can." Helena's hand shook as she showed the message to Vincent. He read it, his expression darkening. "Forward this to me. Don't respond. Don't delete it." He made another call. "Boss, she just got a threat. Anonymous number, they're escalating." Helena sank onto her couch, the weight of everything crashing down. 2 months ago, her biggest worry was making rent. Now someone was threatening to kill people she cared about. Now a man was dead and somehow she was connected to it. "I should leave," she said quietly. "Disappear, before anyone else gets hurt." "That's what they want," Vincent said. "Whoever sent that message wants you scared and running. Because if you run, it makes you look guilty. It makes Dante look weak. It creates chaos they can exploit. And if I stay, more people die? If you stay, we find whoever's behind this and we end it." Vincent's voice was firm. "But it has to be your choice, Mrs. Vargas. Mr. Moretti won't force you to stay in danger." Helena thought about Carla, about the staff at the restaurants, about the life she'd been building. She thought about Sophia, her daughter, who'd never backed down from anything despite being so sick. "I'm not running," she said finally, "but I need to know the truth. All of it. Who am I really dealing with? What kind of war am I in the middle of?" Vincent looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. "I'll tell Mr. Moretti. He'll want to brief you himself." He paused at the door. "For what it's worth, you're handling this better than most people would." "I'm terrified, Vincent." "I know, but you're here. You're thinking clearly. You're not running or falling apart. That's courage, Mrs. Vargas. Real courage." After he left, Helena sat in the dark, looking at the city that had been her home for 30 years. Somewhere out there, someone wanted her dead or gone. Someone was playing a game she didn't understand, using her as a piece on a board she couldn't see. But she wasn't the same woman who'd scrubbed floors in silence. She wasn't invisible anymore. And maybe, just maybe, that meant she could fight back. Her phone rang. "Dante, I'm sending you everything," he said without preamble. "Files on every family, every rivalry, every person who might want to use you against me. You want the truth? You'll have it by morning. Study it. Learn it. Because Helena, this just became a war. And if you're staying, you need to understand the battlefield." "I'm staying." "Good." His voice softened slightly. "Get some rest. Tomorrow, we start fighting back." Helena hung up and looked at her reflection in the dark window. The invisible woman was gone. In her place was someone new, someone dangerous. Someone with everything to lose and nothing left to fear. Helena didn't sleep. She spent the entire night reading the files Dante had sent, encrypted documents that painted a picture of New York's underworld more complex and terrifying than she'd imagined. Families, territories, alliances that shifted like sand, betrayals that went back generations, and threaded through everything. A pattern she almost missed until 4 a.m. when exhaustion made her eyes blur, and suddenly everything snapped into focus. Sophia Toscani, not her father Angelo, not some rival family from Boston or Philadelphia, Dante's dinner companion from just hours ago, the woman with the Harvard MBA and the resentful eyes. Helena's hands trembled as she cross-referenced dates, locations, financial transactions. Curtis Wade had been killed the same night they'd met with the Toscanis. The threatening text had come within an hour of that meeting, and buried in the files was something else. A notation from 3 months ago about Sophia making inquiries about Dante's business operations, specifically asking about any new management changes. She'd been watching, waiting, and when Helena appeared, suddenly trusted and powerful, Sophia had seen an opportunity. At 6 a.m., Helena called Dante. "You're up early," he answered, his voice alert despite the hour. "It's Sophia Toscani." Helena spoke quickly, urgently. "She's behind this. The investigator's death, the threats. She's trying to create a rift between you and her father. If it looks like I'm a liability, if people you protect start dying mysteriously, it makes you look weak. It gives Angelo justification to move against you, or at least to withdraw his cooperation." Silence on the other end. Then, "What evidence do you have?" Helena walked him through everything she'd found, the timing, the patterns, the inquiries. It was circumstantial, but it fit. She resents being in her father's shadow. She thinks if she can destabilize your operation, prove she's more capable than you, Angelo will finally give her real power. I'm just the tool she's using. "If you're right," Dante said slowly, "this is more dangerous than I thought. Accusing Angelo's daughter without concrete proof could start a war we're not ready for. Then we need proof. Real proof. Something that forces Angelo to see what she's doing. And how do you propose we get that?" Helena took a breath. I give her what she wants. I act scared. I run, but not really. I make her think I'm running, draw her out, make her move so we can catch her. Absolutely not, Dante said immediately. That makes you bait. It puts you directly in the line of fire. I'm already in the line of fire. Helena's voice rose. Someone died because of me, Dante. A private investigator who was just doing his job. And that text said next time it would be someone I care about. Carla, Vincent, you. I won't let anyone else get hurt because I'm too afraid to act. Another silence. You sound like a soldier. I sound like a mother who already lost her daughter and won't lose anyone else. Helena's voice cracked. Please, let me do this. Let me help end it. When Dante finally spoke, his voice was heavy. If we do this, it has to be perfect. One mistake and you're dead. Or worse, you start a war that kills hundreds of people. Then we don't make mistakes. By 9 a.m. the plan was in motion. Helena sent a carefully worded email to Dante, copying several of his business managers. Effective immediately, I'm resigning from all positions. Recent events have made it clear this life isn't for me. I'm leaving New York. Please don't try to contact me. She packed a suitcase, visible through her apartment window to anyone watching. She called the building manager about breaking her lease early. She bought a bus ticket to Philadelphia, using her credit card, leaving a digital trail. Everything designed to look like a woman fleeing in panic. Vincent drove her to Port Authority bus terminal at 2 p.m. They were careful to be seen, parking in view of security cameras, walking through the crowded terminal where dozens of witnesses could place them. Helena boarded the bus to Philadelphia with her single suitcase looking every bit like someone running away. But 20 minutes into the journey, at a rest stop in New Jersey, she got off. A different car was waiting. Marco at the wheel, windows tinted. They drove to a safe house in Newark, a nondescript townhouse owned by one of Dante's shell companies. Now we wait, Marco said, positioning himself by the window with a clear view of the street. How long? Helena asked. However long it takes for Sophia to think you're vulnerable. It took 6 hours. At 8:47 p.m., Marco's phone buzzed. He read the message, then looked at Helena. Your apartment. Someone just broke in. Professional. Disabled the alarms, bypassed the locks. They're searching it now. Helena's heart raced. Can you see who it is? Cameras are recording. Vincent's monitoring from a secondary location. Marco's phone buzzed again. 2 men. Not Toscani family. Freelancers. They're planting something. Planting what? Documents. Forged bank statements showing large cash deposits to your account. Communications with a rival family. They're building a case that you were a spy, feeding information to enemies. When they find these after you've disappeared, it makes you look guilty. Makes Dante look like a fool for trusting you. Helena felt cold rage building. This wasn't just about destabilizing Dante, this was character assassination. Sophia was going to destroy Helena's reputation, make everything she'd built look like a lie. Are we getting this on camera? Helena asked. Every second, but it's still not enough to tie it directly to Sophia. These are hired men. They'll never give her up. Then we need to make her show herself. Helena pulled out her phone, a burner Vincent had given her. She sent a text to the number that had threatened her the night before. You win. I'm gone. Just leave my friends alone. Marco looked at her sharply. What are you doing? Proving I'm vulnerable. Giving her confidence. Helena's phone buzzed immediately. Smart choice. Stay gone and everyone lives. Come back and I'll make sure Dante finds your body in pieces. Helena showed the message to Marco. She's confident now. Overconfident. That's when people make mistakes. Or when they decide loose ends need tying up, Marco said grimly. He made a call. Boss, she's communicating with the target. I don't like it. Helena could hear Dante's voice on the other end, sharp and concerned. Marco listened, argued, then finally handed the phone to her. Helena, Marco's right to be worried, Dante said. If Sophia thinks you're gone but might come back, she becomes more dangerous, not less. That's what I'm counting on. She needs to tie up the loose end completely, which means she'll have to show herself or send someone close to her, someone we can trace back. You're thinking like a strategist, but you're forgetting you're not a strategist. You're the target, and targets get killed. Then make sure I don't. Helena's voice was steady. You taught me that power comes from making hard choices. This is mine. She hung up before he could argue more. At 11:34 p.m., Helena's burner phone rang. Unknown number. She answered, putting it on speaker so Marco could hear. Mrs. Vargas. The voice was female, refined, unmistakable. Sophia Toscani. I'm impressed. Most people in your position would have run much farther than Philadelphia. Helena's blood turned to ice, but she kept her voice calm. How did you get this number? Please. You're using one of Moretti's burner phones. You think we don't have people inside his organization? Sophia laughed softly. But I'm not calling to threaten you. I'm calling to offer you something better than running. What could you possibly offer me? Safety. Real safety. Work for me instead. Tell me everything you know about Dante's operations, the legitimate and otherwise. Help me take what should have been mine from the beginning. In return, you get money, protection, and you get to watch the man who put you in danger lose everything. There it was. The confession, the admission of intent. Marco was already recording, sending the audio in real time to Vincent and Dante. Why would I trust you? Helena asked. You killed Curtis Wade. You sent men to frame me. I did what was necessary. Wade knew too much. And the frame job? That was insurance in case you didn't see reason. But you're smart, Helena. Smarter than Dante gives you credit for. You built something real out of those restaurants. Imagine what you could do with real resources. With a partner who understands your value. A partner who murders people who inconvenience her. A partner who makes hard choices just like you did with Bradley Hendricks. Sophia's voice turned sharp. Don't pretend you're innocent. You ruined that man's life without blinking. You're already one of us, you just haven't admitted it yet. Helena felt sick. Because part of what Sophia said was true. She had made ruthless choices. She had stepped into this world and adapted to its rules. But there was a difference between protecting yourself and casually ordering deaths to serve your ambition. I need time to think, Helena said. You have 2 hours. Meet me at Pier 76, come alone. We'll discuss terms. If you don't show, I'll assume you've chosen Dante, and I'll have to make sure you can never testify about this conversation. Your choice, Mrs. Vargas. Partnership or a shallow grave. The line went dead. Marco was already on his phone. She took the bait. Pier 76, 2 hours. She'll have backup, probably a sniper. I know, Helena said quietly. She never intended to partner with me. This is an execution. Which is why you're not going. Which is why I'm going with overwhelming backup. Helena looked at him. Call Dante. Tell him it's time to end this. Pier 76 was an industrial waterfront area. Warehouses, shipping containers, shadows everywhere. At 1:47 a.m., Helena walked onto the pier alone, her footsteps echoing on the wooden planks. The Hudson River stretched out black and cold beside her. But she wasn't really alone. In the shadows, invisible but present, were 12 of Dante's best men. On nearby rooftops, counter-snipers. In a van 2 blocks away, Dante himself, monitoring everything through hidden cameras and microphones. Sophia emerged from behind a shipping container, flanked by 2 bodyguards. She wore all black, her blonde hair pulled back, looking nothing like the refined woman from the restaurant. This was the real Sophia. Cold, calculating, dangerous. You came, Sophia said. I wasn't sure you would. You gave me a compelling argument. Helena stopped 10 feet away, close enough to talk, far enough to run if necessary. Have you made your decision? I have. Helena took a breath. You're going to confess everything to your father. The investigator's murder, the frame job, this entire plan. You're going to tell him you acted alone, and then you're going to disappear for a very long time. Sophia laughed. And why would I do that? Because for the last 3 minutes, this conversation has been broadcast live to your father's private phone. He's listening right now. Aren't you, Angelo? Sophia's face went white. She grabbed for her phone, but Helena was faster, holding up her own phone where Angelo Toscani's face was visible on a video call, his expression carved from stone. Sophia! Angelo's voice came through, barely controlled rage underneath. Tell me this is some kind of misunderstanding. Papa, I can explain. She's lying. She manipulated. I heard you confess to murder. I heard you try to start a war between our families. I heard you threaten this woman's life. Angelo's voice was like gravel. Come home. Now. We will discuss your future. Sophia looked at Helena with pure hatred. You think you've won? You're nothing. A cleaning woman playing dress-up in a world you don't understand. I understand enough, Helena said quietly. I understand that power without wisdom is just violence. I understand that respect isn't taken, it's earned. And I understand that you've spent so long trying to prove you're strong that you forgot to actually be smart. Dante emerged from the shadows then, flanked by Vincent and Marco. Behind Sophia, her bodyguards found themselves surrounded by men with weapons drawn. It's over, Sophia, Dante said. Angelo knows everything. You're going home to face consequences. And if you ever threaten anyone under my protection again, our families will go to war and your father will hand you over himself to keep the peace." Sophia stood there, trapped, her grand plan crumbling. Finally, she turned and walked toward the waiting car, her bodyguards following. But at the last moment, she looked back at Helena. "You may have won tonight," she said, "but you'll never really belong in this world. You'll always be the cleaning woman who got lucky." Helena met her gaze steadily. "You're right. I'll never belong in your world. Because your world is about taking power through fear and violence. I'm building something different, something better. And that terrifies you because you know it actually works." After they left, Helena stood on the pier, adrenaline draining from her system, leaving her exhausted and shaking. Dante approached carefully. "You were extraordinary tonight," he said. "The way you handled Sophia, the way you saw through her plan. A man died, Dante. Curtis Wade. He died because I entered this world. He died because Sofia Toscani is ruthless and desperate, not because of you." Dante stepped closer. "But if you want to blame yourself, if this is too much, I meant what I said before. I'll set you up somewhere safe. You can walk away." Helena looked out at the river, at the city lights reflecting on the dark water. She thought about Sophia, her daughter, who'd wanted to stand up for people who couldn't stand up for themselves. She thought about Carla and Marco and all the people whose lives were better because she'd taken this chance. "I'm not walking away," she said finally. "But I'm also not becoming like Sophia, or like the people who think power is just about fear. I'm going to keep building, keep helping, keep proving that there's another way. Even though it's harder, even though people will keep testing you, especially because of that." Helena turned to face him. "You saved me from invisibility, Dante. You gave me a chance to matter. Now let me show you what that really means." Dante studied her face in the dim light, then slowly nodded. "Then let's build something worth protecting." 6 weeks later, Helena stood in the newly renovated Castellanos, watching Carla train a new line cook, a young woman from Queens who reminded Helena of herself 20 years ago. The restaurant was packed, reservations booked solid for 2 months. The New York Times had just given them 4 stars. Her phone buzzed. A text from Vincent. "Angelo Toscani sends his regards. Sophia's been sent to manage family operations in Sicily. Permanent exile. You made an impression." Helena smiled slightly. She'd made more than an impression. She'd proven something that many in that world had forgotten. That strength didn't require cruelty. That power could be built on respect rather than fear. She was no longer invisible. But more importantly, she was no longer afraid. That evening, Helena sat at the restaurant's best table. Not as staff, but as Dante's guest and partner. Around them, the city's elite dined and made deals, unaware that the well-dressed woman in the corner had once cleaned their floors. Dante raised his wine glass. "To new beginnings." Helena touched her glass to his. "To earned respect. And to the woman who taught me that the most dangerous thing in the world isn't violence or money or power," Dante said quietly. "It's someone who has nothing to lose and everything to prove." Helena looked around the restaurant she'd helped save, at the people she'd helped employ, at the life she'd built from nothing. She thought about the journey from that humiliating night at Le Palais d'Or to this moment, from invisible to indispensable, from victim to victor. "I still miss her," she said suddenly. "Sophia, my daughter, every day." Dante nodded. "I know. She would have loved seeing this, seeing me stand up, seeing me matter. She knows," Dante said. "Wherever she is, she knows. And she's proud." Helena felt tears prick her eyes but didn't try to hide them. Some wounds never fully healed. Some losses never stopped hurting. But maybe that was okay. Maybe carrying that pain while still moving forward, still building, still fighting. Maybe that was the real strength. Her phone buzzed again. This time, an email from a culinary school in Brooklyn. "Dear Mrs. Vargas, we received your recommendation for Carla Reyes and would like to offer her a full scholarship to our management program." Helena smiled through her tears. This was her power now. Not fear or violence, but opportunity. Not taking, but building. Not domination, but elevation. The invisible woman was gone forever. In her place was someone new. Someone who'd learned that respect couldn't be demanded or bought, only earned through character, dignity, and the choices you made when everyone was watching. Helena Vargas had finally found her place in the world. Not on her knees and not through fear, but standing tall, building something real and teaching others that they could do the same. The restaurant hummed with life around her. The city sparkled outside. And for the first time in 15 years since Sophia died, Helena felt something unexpected: hope.